Hello and welcome to the weekly wrap with the USA Liberalists. I am Cody and I'll be your host for today. Joining me today is Matt and Jordan.
Yo!
Hello.
Today we will be covering a broad range of topics. We'll be covering the Guatemalan boy who died at the southern border, the government shutdown, some news from a UN panel that I thought was hilarious. What's going on with the border wall GoFundMe and the withdrawal in Syria, and we'll cut back to a story we covered last week and update some of the stuff that's been going on with Patreon. Yeah.
I've been having fun following the Patreon thing.
Isn't it just a shit show?
It's interesting, yeah. I might even have some information that you might not have heard yet, Matt, but we'll get there when we get there.
Okay.
For sure. So we're going to start with the Guatemalan boy. 8-year-old Guatemalan boy who was detained by U.S. Customs and Border Protection died at a hospital in New Mexico. Kind of the same thing that happened like a week ago or whatever that was with the girl. But a timeline.
Yeah, the girl died of septic shock.
Right. She was only in custody for I wrote it down, like 27 hours or something like that.
Yeah, like from what I saw of that particular situation, she was dehydrated, and there was a couple other problems that were going on with her when she got across the border, and then just kind of croaked in custody. So,
yeah, pretty much. There wasn't a whole lot they could do for that one, but let's hear more about the Guatemalan thing, because I think anyone watching this is probably already aware that the girl kind of died due to her dad being a dickhead.
Yeah,
pretty much. Well, the boy and his father were apprehended around 1 p.m. on December 13th, 3 miles west of Paso del Norte, port of entry.
Okay.
And they were brought to the detention center a little after 4:30, so it took them about 3.5 hours. And they were, according to CBP, they were given hot food, snacks, juice, and water. And the agents did 8 welfare checks.
I'm guessing the evil agents poisoned the poor kid's food. Goddamn.
Totally. They just
bastards.
It's always off that way. No one would suspect a thing. And then on Thursday, they were taken to the El Paso Border Patrol Station and held for 2 days. And they were provided with food, water, and showers. And the agents did 17 welfare checks. And then they were, on Sunday, they were taken to Alamogordo Border Patrol for finalized processing.
Do we know why there were so many welfare checks? Like, I don't know the procedure necessarily, but that sounds like a lot of welfare checks.
Well, I would assume they're in a hyper state of trying to be in a hyper state of awareness with the previous incident.
That's fair.
Yeah. Well, and it's 17, I believe, over 2 days. So
that's kind of why I'm saying, like, that's what, like, nearly a wellness check every couple hours during the waking hours?
Yeah, I mean...
That's a lot of welfare check. I don't know. It just seems a little excessive, but maybe they are being extra vigilant. Who knows?
If you've ever been in jail, that sounds about right.
Fair enough. Okay.
Never been to jail, but yeah.
I got close.
I don't think those are...
I was in holding for a while.
The closest I've ever been was had the cuff slapped on me and put in the back of a squad car for something I didn't even do. So
I made it all the way, man.
I tried to steal a Full Metal Alchemist watch once.
Oof.
Don't drink and drive, kids.
No, don't. That's a terrible idea. Don't ever do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So on Monday, so the day after they were taken to Alamogordo, the boy began to show signs of illness and was taken to Gerald Champion Regional Medical Center. He was tested for strep and then diagnosed with a common cold and given Tylenol and prepared for release. But before they released him, they noticed he had a fever of 103, so they decided to hold him for observations.
Probably a good idea, yeah.
They prescribed antibiotics and ibuprofen once they were released. So they believed that they were healthy enough to travel because they took them to another checkpoint, and the child was given the medications at about 5 p.m. So that's half a day or so. But 2 hours later, the boy vomited, and his father declined further medical assistance.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Declined further medical assistance.
Yes.
I think we're done here. Like,
pretty much.
I mean, yes, but I did hear earlier that this is supposed to be like a mix of both sides being somewhat at fault. So I want to let's hear it out.
Okay.
So at around 10 p.m., the boy became lethargic and was taken back to the hospital. He vomited again and lost consciousness along the way, and they were unable to revive him and declared dead around midnight. And they haven't done the autopsy yet, so there's nothing. We don't know officially what the cause of death is. But let's see. I wrote some stuff down here.
Oh, so we don't actually know. We don't actually have an official. It's not like with the girl where we know for a fact it was septic shock. We don't quite know what's going on just yet.
It may. Somebody might know, but I have no idea currently.
Okay.
Well, if we look
I don't
at
know
the
that
symptoms presented. It's 103-degree fever, which usually happens when a some sort of infection is there. So the antibiotics being prescribed is probably the best route, honestly. I would imagine it's probably, and this is coming from someone who hasn't gone to medical school. I don't have any official medical training. I'm a bit autistic when it comes to medicine.
Yeah, okay. That's a good thing in this case.
Yeah.
Right.
So as I said, 103-degree fever kind of tracks with an infection. I would imagine since their travel from they're from Guatemala, right?
Yes.
So that's a long, full trek. I would imagine it's going to be a combination of dehydration and an infection.
Yeah.
Or some sort of basically a fact, like there was an infection that was then exacerbated by the travel.
So you're saying the one that makes got like dysentery?
It could be dysentery.
Well, surely if it was that sort of infection, that would there'd be more obvious symptoms presenting. Because they thought that initially it was like a flu, so that doesn't sound like there were any external symptoms.
Well, they did test for strep throat, and so, but
well, that's what I'm saying. Like they initially thought it was some sort of like influenza, which, considering the season, would make a decent amount of sense.
Yeah.
Assuming that whatever he picked up was actually picked up this side of the border, which is assuming a lot, all things considered. But
right.
Still, if there's no outward symptoms, that doesn't sound like there's any sort of outward infection, which to me sounds more like a virus.
That's possible.
Which would also be explained by a fever.
A fever.
So I'm trying to like suss my way through it, and I'm just saying when it comes to the flu, it wouldn't actually be that weird for that to induce vomiting. And if he's also dehydrated, like the flu isn't that dangerous normally, but if you're out in extreme conditions for a long period of time, it can go south quickly.
This boy is like 12 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
8.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
So yeah, the flu is actually extremely dangerous to people who are out in extreme conditions and young, because the flu is a virus that attacks. It's not attacking the immune system like the AIDS virus does, but your immune system isn't strong enough to fight off the virus itself. So yeah, that would make a whole lot of sense. That there's probably like a combination of a couple factors that have come in here. And if it's a virus, then the antibiotics wouldn't do shit for it. So
Yeah,
Well,
also true.
one of the criticisms that was raised by a Democratic representative was um, that a detention center is no place for a child, particularly a sick child. And when it was determined that he was ill, she's wondering um, why they sent him back to the detention center, which is not even fit for a well child, she said. Um,
Oh,
but
good Lord.
there's court orders that prevent Customs and Border Protection from holding children more than 72 hours. And so what they do to kind of get around that is that they have to move them from one facility to another to avoid going over that 72-hour limit. And this
Man,
child,
that's dumb. I wish they would just like build larger, more permanent institutions so they don't have to pull shit like this. I mean, Democrats think that they're helping, but in reality, it is like you're saying, to keep hold of the kids and make sure they don't just come into the country. Effectively, it seems like being under 18, according to a Democrat, is a free pass just to come in wherever the fuck you want.
yeah,
Um,
and that just if that's true, if we do that, then kids are just going to come in and then they're going to be preyed upon by sex
exactly.
traffickers,
Oh yeah, for sure,
drug
absolutely.
Which
mules.
is why I'm saying how about instead of like 40 tent cities, we have like one actual center.
They have a couple
Some
of these
sort of
actually that are ran
cam.
by. We'll check this out. So there's a few that are along the border. One of them that is used to be a Walmart, and we all know how big those
Okay,
things
true.
are.
I saw that.
Good
Yeah.
start. Good start.
And it's ran by a nonprofit. Uh,
Okay.
so like that idea does exist. I just don't know if there's one in this area. Which honestly, this is kind of we're going to zoom right back into and touch on another topic we're going to talk about, which this is where a border wall would help because
Yes.
because what you do is you would be able to funnel these people into specific channels where we would then set up these detention centers that are the size of a Walmart, and it's all there. We don't have to move them anywhere. They just, whoop, we got you. Get in here.
True.
Yeah, there's a nonprofit nearby, I believe,
Okay.
where this happened called Annunciation House,
Yeah.
and they provide shelter and food to illegal aliens after they've been released by ICE. But they've been overwhelmed because ICE has released more than 200 people
Yeah.
on one day, and then similar numbers on Monday and Tuesday. And they were expecting more Wednesday and Thursday. So it just seems like everybody's overwhelmed by the number of people uh, attempting to enter the U.S. Let's just
I
say
just
that.
want to know what the Democrat end game here is actually, because like it's not like the Democrats think this is a winning issue.
No.
Seriously, they don't think that. They know that it's a losing issue.
Yeah.
That's why they try their damnedest not to talk about it. And anytime
Well,
they do talk about it, it always turns into moralizing terms like you'd agree with me if you weren't a horrible person. Ah.
well, they I think they see it as we oppose Trump, and that's to them is a winning issue. Number one, and then number
True.
two, it's like I don't want to oppose this because any sort of whiff of racism will get me immediately kicked out of my party.
Also, well, I
Um,
mean, would it though? Because I mean, can we just talk about some of the Democrats' pasts? Seriously, like some of these guys have some very colored, checkered pasts. Hillary
they're in
Clinton
politics.
notwithstanding. Well, exactly. They're politicians. It's going to happen. If they're trying to be like the squeaky clean party, uh, can I just remind everyone what the politics? Seriously, like all of it.
Well, they're trying to be
It's not cleaning.
the moral busybody party. It seems to
I,
me.
s- I suppose. Leave
Um,
that to the conservatives. They do a better job of it anyway.
yeah. Get that back where it belongs.
Put that back where it belongs. The fucking moralizing assholes are supposed to be the conservatives. Jesus.
Not
Oh, dude,
anymore,
we're not
man.
even going to go down that path because, like, I think we're close to a moralizing like a position flop. You know,
Yeah.
like you have like
Oh yeah.
like you had like what happened with the Democrats and the Republicans in the '60s when they kind of flipped positions a little bit.
Yeah, it's looking like it might flip again pretty soon.
well, yeah, if the Republicans will ever accept the flip, it will.
Hopefully,
But
it'd be
I don't.
nice.
They haven't realized it yet.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it'll be a nice change of pace, but we'll see if it's actually nice. Because I swear to God, like I am old enough to remember like the back end of the moral majority, and it was real annoying.
Hmm.
So yeah, the boy pretty much. I mean, it just seems
I
like
would really like to know why, like what caused this kid's death, because
yeah,
that's really important to this.
we'll
True.
know, and then or we won't. I don't know. Well, I'll try to
Well, I mean,
follow up on
that's
the
kind of how
story.
we ended up off topic, isn't it? Because we actually don't know enough to really say one way or another whose fault this actually is.
Well, and it
Yeah.
doesn't really like.
It doesn't sound like it's their fault. It sounds like it was the parents' fault, but
Well,
I
yeah, I
I,
mean,
I don't
it
know.
could be both
So,
because maybe he picked up an infection somewhere
Could
along the
be.
yeah.
way,
Could be.
which you know, who knows why or where or how or when that stuff sort of happens.
So I'm kind of digging further into this article here, and there's a section. It starts with the initial screening revealed no evidence of health issues, right? So,
Hmm.
like, I'll read this. So the initial screening revealed no evidence of health issues. During the screening, the father denied that either he or his daughter were ill. Oh, is this from the?
Oh
This,
yeah,
that's
Yeah, I
from
was about to say
that's something
that's a
else.
different.
the other
That's
girl.
something
Yeah,
else. Got it. Okay.
yeah.
So
They,
She's not ill. She
but
just hasn't drank in 5 days.
well, check this out. So the symptoms the 8-year-old boy exhibited are similar to the ones Jakelyn showed before she died. That's the girl.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, well, what does septic shock look like? Let's.
Well,
I have no
septic shock is basically when the body poisons itself.
Yeah.
Like shit starts just shutting down and like toxins start leaking out everywhere.
Sure, but in that case, also it would be because the immune like the reason why the temperature ramps up right inside the human being is because the immune system ramps up trying to fight something, right?
Right.
Which is where septic shock comes into play. If there's septic shock, there's toxins there, which would also correlate with a rise in temperature. So this could honestly be another situation where this kid died from the same situation, almost very similar set of circumstances.
Could
Which
be,
is
but her circumstance was pretty much just extreme dehydration that led to that.
yeah,
So unless he's in a very similar situation, because it sounds like they thought that he at least had some sort of virus,
uh-huh,
which could technically also, or maybe not a virus, maybe I don't know. But anyway, like I suspect that any dehydration he had didn't exactly help.
right.
Um,
Well, and he was
but
in
it was like over a day, right? Like where he had like food and water and like was doing okay, and then suddenly wasn't.
he was in custody for 130 hours, which is like 5.5 days.
Right. And if he's
So
had like access to food and water that whole time, this should not be an issue of dehydration.
Right.
yeah, there might be something more too, where if he was dehydrated and then he drank too much water or ate too much and got sick, and then
That's normally an issue with
but
starvation, though, isn't it? Because I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure
yeah,
I'm pretty sure if you're like dehydrated, like your body is not going to sit there and be like, no, no more water, please stop the water flow.
but we're just speculating at this point.
True, we are, but
Yeah.
I did look up because I was curious to how long it takes a person to die without water, and it's about
It's like
3 to 4 days.
yeah.
yeah, I was about to say
I can
4 days is about the
imagine
longest you can last.
imagine a kid would be even less. But with the case with Jacqueline, the girl, she was only in custody for 27 hours. So if
Yeah, in other words, she
she
hadn't
was
had. Yeah,
totally fine before that and then got into custody, which is what the father is saying, um,
That's
suddenly
bullshit.
he's a doctor.
That sounds like bullshit to me. That sounds like someone who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about.
Well, I think he's just saying that to kind of like skirt his responsibility of being
Yeah, like
a parent.
yeah, being a parent and making sure that on this massive trek that you've decided to take your children on, that they have adequate food and water for the.
or fuck, even if it's not adequate, get her something. Teach her some survival skills. Teach her how to drink her own piss.
Yeah,
like,
they need to
like,
watch Bear Grylls. He's pretty
Yeah.
good
like
at teaching people how to do that.
Why don't they
Yeah,
YouTube Bear
he's
Grylls?
great at teaching how to drink your own piss. He's great at
Yeah.
that. Bear Grylls is an old pro at peeing in his own mouth.
Doesn't even need to. He just can go right in there.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mess it up. Awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Well, he
the
does have a
government-
6 foot. It is like 6 foot, so he just like swings it around in there.
I think a good way to kind of sum this up is, as of right now, it's possible that somebody could have screwed up, and it definitely deserves. If someone did screw up, they deserve to get fired and redesign the whole system. If they didn't,
Oh yeah, A+ for investigation.
yeah, I'm fine with that too. Again, with investigations, I just worry about open-ended, non-ending investigations that look for things that have nothing to do with the initial cause of the investigation.
sure.
I'm not a
True.
fan of that because then it just becomes investigation as political weapon.
Yeah, but you can't not do them either. Like,
No, I just want it reasonably bounded.
yeah, maybe there needs to be like a separate process in place for how investigations get carried out.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some sort of like, well, I don't know if you could have a properly nonpartisan body, but
Well,
you could try.
I'll talk to Congress and let them know.
Right. We need Congress. I'm sorry, you need to like limit your powers a little bit.
You need to do
Just-
something. You fucking lazy ass motherfuckers. Well, they only work like 120 days or something like that, and they
Dude,
make
can
like
I be a congressman? Jesus Christ. That sounds fucking
5 or
awesome.
6 times what I make. Yeah, right.
Also sounds awesome. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go into a heavily Democratic district, run as a Democrat, and just kick everyone out that tries to vote, and hopefully win.
Sounds good.
Sounds like a
It'll be
plan.
awesome.
We'll just shut the government down for like a couple years.
We're going to pull an AOC. We'll see.
Shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it down.
So
there you go.
with,
Just vote for yourself one time and then shut down all the voting locations. It'll be
with
fucking
the
awesome.
with the government shutdown, since Friday, the 21st, the government, 25% of the government is shut down. Now that's the non-essential, about 25%. So you've all probably seen the meme where it says something like, this many government employees are considered non-essential. Why do we even have them? It's like 25% of the government is not essential. Why do we even need it? But they closed due to border wall funding, and Trump's being pretty badass on this, in my opinion. He is not backing down. So
I thought they already got the congressional approval for the funding.
They did in the Senate, and then the House rejected it.
yeah,
Wait, what? No, I thought he got the approval in the House. Maybe I'm reading the wrong thing.
No, from what I'm seeing, yeah.
Well, yeah, of course he has Senate approval. Fucking, God damn it. Well, fine. Fuck you, Congress. We're gonna shut you down too. Shut it down.
if only it worked that way.
I refuse to sign a funding bill for Congress. None of you bitches are getting paid.
I'm not paying. Are you saying something like taxation is theft?
Oh, you don't want to have this conversation.
Don't
with
go
me,
down
Cody.
that road. Don't go down that road.
You and me have crossed swords multiple times on this one, Cody.
I wasn't going there.
I'm not 100% opposed to taxation, but I prefer less, personally.
Yes, I can agree with that.
I don't know how we got here, so we're gonna just gonna move on.
I totally used to subscribe to all that and cap.
I will sledgehammer both of you.
Then I realized how like utopian and idiotic
ridiculous
it
sounded. Okay.
So I've come around a little bit. I've gotten better. I'm a Republican now, so hey.
Good Lord. All right. Anyway, back to the story. Since I'm not sure how we got off on that tangent. But yeah, I don't think there's too much to worry. Like, I'm not even sure how much to say about the government shutdown, just because there's not.
Yeah, there's not a ton. The story I read said that it's about a third of the workers, and then Trump, in true Trumpian fashion, said that many of the workers have told him to stay out until you get funding for the wall. But then one of the workers' union leaders, of course, disagreed with him and said that he's basically holding them hostage, something like that. But of course, they're
Oh,
union.
come on, guys. They're gonna fucking you're gonna get paid once the government goes back into functioning.
Yeah. So
Like if you don't have savings, granted this sucks, but
if there's some of these people that are working without pay, and that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But there's another group that are put in furlough, which is, as long as this goes, you get a vacation. It sucks that you can't pay your like I get it, if you don't have any savings that would really blow. But if you do, you just get a vacation where you get to claim
well,
unemployment.
I don't
much.
know. It kind of reminds me of there's a Japanese practice in companies where if they want to get rid of you, but they don't want to pay out. What they'll do is they'll basically stick you in a room doing completely useless tasks until you just quit
Yeah.
on your own. Um, if we've got 25% of our government employees basically doing that, why the fuck? Like, I'm sorry. If you're doing a job where you're useless and you know you're useless, get a real job.
Yep.
Like, I'm not even going to go down the rabbit hole of like, the what a real job is. Like, a job where you're producing something that someone actually wants. YouTuber counts, Uber counts, any like if you want to go down to the fucking downtown, play guitar and put a case out in front of you, to me that counts more than what you're doing right now.
Right.
Pretty much.
Because at least when you're out there on the sidewalk begging for change, playing music, you're contributing a skill
Something.
to someone's enjoyment. Enough that,
Something is happening. Yes.
yeah.
You're not
Rather,
fucking stacking blocks in a room and going, "Yay." And then getting paid for it, all right?
so if it's 25%, like I did see, it's like the forestry thing, like that. I kind of like, that's one of the things I'm like, if it's like public parks, we could probably, I don't know.
Well, I mean, even things like that. Okay, fine. Those guys, you're not stacking blocks, you're actually doing something.
Right.
Not
But
out here in the West, they're not.
well, okay, well, I don't know about all that. But yeah, there are definitely some workers that I'm fully aware of because some of my family members are those workers. Hi guys. Um,
They're
that are
totally doing
that are completely useless to everything. Like they literally don't need to be there. No one knows why they're there. Yeah. One of them I'm
Yeah.
fully aware spends his entire day watching YouTube videos
So
because he literally can't do anything. This is like a military contractor
sounds good to
that
me.
well, yeah, it's a military contractor, which is a real job. And then you realize that after he switched over and then doesn't have his license for contracting anymore, he can't actually work. But he can get paid because they can't fire him because he's a military veteran.
The protected
So,
class. They have a
yeah.
coworker like that who's over a certain age and they can't fire him because he's too old. I'm like, man, you made it. He actually works
Seriously.
though. He actually likes working.
So check this out. So this is one that kind of gets. Is this? I got to double check and make sure this is an article. Oh, this is January 22nd. Never mind. That's old.
It's more from the future.
January 2019. Wow. I want to know the future.
Well,
I was
speaking
2018.
about useless governmental bodies, there was a UN panel that said that the U.S. owes reparations to African Americans.
Sure. We'll put that resolution right on the refrigerator next to Ringo Starr's drawings, and
Yep.
we'll
You
pay
know what?
complete attention to it.
Hold on. I've got like an action. Hear me out on this one because I think that you guys might be interested to hear this take on it. I've got a hot take.
Hot take coming up.
Give them the fucking reparations.
Okay.
Because you know what?
I'm not with you so far.
Hold on. Just give me a chance. Give me a chance here. I know that this is not going to be a popular idea in this particular room, but hear me out. All right. How much reparations would we actually have to pay out? Right? It wouldn't be that much. And once we do, they get to shut the fuck up about it for the rest of history.
Oh, a one-time bribe, and then we get to.
And then we get to say we gave you the reparations. Shut up. It's
Uh,
basically a bribe to make them stop talking about it.
well, the
Because
thing is,
I think it's in everyone's mental health interest to not have to hear the word reparations come out of Jesse Jackson's mouth every 20 seconds.
Right.
no, I'm still not for it.
I'm just saying
Let them complain.
it's a one-time fee. It's one time where you get to say, look, this has been done. We're good to go.
Yeah, but how
Don't want to hear
much?
about it. I mean, have you seen our fucking debt at this point? Like, who cares?
Well, what if everybody wants $1 million? And then anybody who has skin darker than khaki can claim it.
Can I just point out, like, even if our entire country wanted $1 million, we could probably cover it. Like, if every single person wanted just $1 million, I probably could probably cover it.
It could probably cover
No,
it.
I don't think we could. That's socialist territory.
I know it is, but what I'm saying is, like, if it was a one-time thing, we could probably figure it out.
No, because
I'm not saying we should do that, but I'm saying, like, we're talking about an extreme version. I'm saying, like, if we took it to the absolute extreme, it would still probably be okay. So if we like draw it back into a much more reasonable extreme, it should be fine.
fundamentally I'm opposed because this is basically just like group guilt, essentially, or collective guilt.
Well, it depends on how you view it, because it's not like I'm not suggesting that we just take the money out of white pockets and put them into black pockets. I'm
Well,
saying
and
we
then
take the collective money and just throw it to them real quick, and then just be like, all right, here's your money, go away.
well, what if we just the only the only way that I may be on board, which I probably won't be, but the only way I could get
Okay.
close to being on board is if maybe they got a tax break for like 5 years or something.
Okay. I can see that. Like,
Um,
that's probably fair, where we just don't just hand the money, but give it out in different ways,
oh yeah, because
so that it's easier.
I don't think my money, because my family was not in America during the time of slavery. So why should I have to pay for something my ancestors didn't even participate in just
Well,
because of
true,
the
but
color of my skin?
nobody's thinking about it that individualistically. Do you actually think that every single black person in this country has like slave ancestry? No, not all of
If
them
they
did.
were getting reparations, they would all, yes, certainly say that.
Well, exactly.
Or
It's
the
kind of
vast
what I'm saying.
majority.
Like I guarantee you, fucking Nigerian that came here yesterday is like, I get $1 million for being black if I just say I would have slave ancestors.
So,
Yeah, hella slave ancestors,
so
tons of
I'm
slave
reading this
ancestors.
article, right, and it says just listen to the name of this fucking entity, right? The UN Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent said that
Yep.
compensation is necessary to combat the disadvantages caused by 245 years of legally allowing the sale of people based on the color of their skin. So, like, yeah, it
Wait,
fucking sucks, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But like, we fucking got rid of this shit. like we got rid of it.
Well,
It
I'm
does feel like we're
wondering.
being punished for being the first ones to get rid of it, because I like there are still regions in the world, in Africa they might even know, since they're such experts on African descent, where
Well,
slavery still exists.
I'm wondering if they're okay with allowing the sale of people based on something other than skin color.
Oof.
Because if we just, if there was some other reason for it, that'd be
The
cool.
The
But
next sentence is even worse than that one. The UN group warned that the U.S. has not confronted its legacy of racial terrorism.
yep.
Oh, fuck you, Europe.
You're right. Right. Confronted
Fuck you.
This is the UN.
confronted its legacy of racist terrorism.
Where the
Racial
fuck?
terror.
Where do you think we? Like, I love how they're separating themselves out from it. Like,
Right.
Fucking, where do you?
Like the fucking
Who
Dutch
do you
are
think we bought them from?
like the fucking Dutch are completely exempt from this.
Yeah.
Like
Here's
the
Dutch
Africans.
reparations.
Like the fucking Africans are exempt from this. Who do you think the Europeans bought them from?
Right.
Like everybody, there's no clean hands here. Everybody
Right.
stinks of shit. All right.
So what they want, this is how they would like their
The
reparations.
Asians are clean. Okay, they can be clean.
Yeah, China never had slaves, just
Okay,
communism.
of African slaves. Of African slaves. We're talking
Oh,
about the transatlantic slave
it
trade.
wasn't based on skin color, so it was cool.
Does that
So
mean if I want to buy poor people, is that cool?
as long as it's not based on skin color, according to the UN Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent, yeah, it's totally
No.
fine. So the reparations that they said that are acceptable could include educational opportunities, psychological rehabilitation, debt cancellation, and formal apologies.
I will write I will
Yep.
write one out right now.
I
I
am
am so sorry that my family did not own slaves.
I'm all for that last one. nice cheap words.
Yeah.
Same here. Like,
Yeah.
holy shit,
I'll
dude.
fucking write it right now.
Who's the unlucky? Can you imagine being some fucking hick in the Appalachians right now, but his like ancient family history was like this massive plantation, and have the IRS knock on his door like, I know you've got about $20 to your name. I'm gonna need about 20 million.
Right. Like doing it that way is ridiculous. But if formal apologies, if I was like Trump, I'd be like, we're going with formal apologies, and just write them out, and just slap it up on WhiteHouse.gov. There you go. That would be good Trump. That is a definition of good Trump.
Oh my
Good
god.
Trump, troll Trump. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
All right, we can't do that. We have to take the temperature down at some point.
Well, here's
I know it's not as fun, but seriously.
the U.S. government isn't doing anything on this as far as I know, but Georgetown University announced that it would offer free tuition to the descendants of the 272 slaves that were sold in 1838 to help pay the university's debts.
Okay, like
What?
why that number? Number one, I'd have to are they saying that was like the Georgetown University? That was
It
the
must
number
be
of
some historical thing specific
They
to
probably have
Georgetown,
a
yeah.
record of
the slaves that actually worked on Georgetown. No, that would make sense.
that were owned
Right.
by the university.
Yeah.
They sold them to pay for their debts, but if they're descended, which is there some sort of
Oh
ancestry.com test that
Free
will
tuition
tell
for
you that?
descendants of the 272 slaves that were sold in 1838. Now it makes sense.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so at least there's like a connection there, but I sort of understand that because like if you want to, because another reason I'd actually be kind of okay with reparations, if we're talking about a group like Georgetown that has a specific set of people that it needs to repair relations with for whatever reason for things that happened in the past, okay. This is actually something that the United States government did promise in the past, and it never made good on. So if they want to hold the United States feet to the fire and say, "Look, we want our 3 acres in the mule," okay, 40 acres in the mule, sorry, and they want to make the United States government make good on that promise,
I'm
I'm
cool
kind
with
of
that.
okay with that. Yeah,
I'm
like
kinda okay with
they did make the promise. Like if they didn't do it, then they should make good on that, or
Yeah,
some
but
equivalent. Because obviously we can't just because the population's larger than it used to be, so that'd be difficult. But maybe some sort of equivalency thing.
Yeah, and Andrew Johnson, I'm reading further down in the article, and Andrew Johnson reversed it, and the land was returned to the plantation owner. So, like, they actually did it. They did it, and then said, "No, it's ours now. Fuck off." And I'm like,
That is shitty. To be
Yeah.
fair, that is pretty shitty.
the plan was proposed by Sherman, General Sherman, but yeah, Andrew Johnson said nope. Now was Andrew Johnson? Now here's the question: was he a Democrat, or was he a Whig, or whoever else was there?
well, the Whig Party collapsed, and the Republicans came out of it.
I mean, to be fair, the Whig Party is a pretty stupid name, so
Right.
it makes sense.
Andrew Johnson, yeah.
Says the liberalist to the Whig. That's okay.
Yeah, I don't know who he was. He was the vice
A
president.
Democrat who ran with Lincoln on the National Union ticket.
Yep. There you go.
Goddamn Democrats.
Damn it. They just ruin everything.
Nah, there's some Democrats that are okay.
Um,
They exist.
yeah. Well, I think we pretty much covered that story. I just thought that was
Yeah.
hilarious, especially the name
No,
of the
that's
group.
ridiculous. That's a
The-
ridiculous fucking state. That like this thing like this dumb.
right. It's basically the
I just
UN is
I
full
just
of.
wish some of them would stop giving us platitudes and give us specifics. Because like I'm the one that had to come out with, okay, it sort of makes sense if you look at it, if you sort of squint at it and then like look back into history a little bit. Why am I
Yeah.
the one having to make that fucking point? If you're
Right.
the experts on fucking African whatever, why aren't you the one saying, look, you made this promise, you fucked it up, fix it? Why am
Well,
I the one making that point?
and then how? Where do my problem is? Where does it end? Like, how far back do we go?
Well, that's why I'm
Who
like linking it to a specific
qualifies?
thing. That's why I'm linking it to a specific point in history with a specific promise that was supposed to be paid out to a specific group.
Right.
Like, if they want to do that, I'm fine with it because that
I,
was a previous promise that wasn't upheld
I
properly.
feel like there's like a time limit on these things.
I mean, maybe, but at the same time, like, because it was a governmental entity that made the promise, or like a still existing group that made the promise in the form of the American government, I'm more okay with that. Like the idea of Georgetown giving out free tuition to the descendants of those slaves, right? Specific group that's paying back another specific group. Because like obviously I can't go back and slap around plantation owners. They're not here anymore. Like that doesn't work.
But you could
I can't
find their descendants because apparently
They probably don't
that
even
would
own the
work.
land anymore. Like that's the thing. Like you're running into there's a lot of complex things that go on with something
true.
like that.
True, but I mean
But I'm not saying it's not a bad idea. There's definitely like that's an engineering problem rather than like we shouldn't do it type of problem.
yeah. Well, because I
Well,
mean, like, even if you want to say that the descendants shouldn't get it because they're not descendants, the idea that they would come back with is, we're in a bad position
Hmm.
now. We wouldn't be in a
No,
bad.
no, 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 no. I'm saying the descendants of the plantations that the land was taken from.
No, no,
And you,
I know you're saying that. I'm saying the argument that they would come back with if you tried to say that the descendants shouldn't, that the African descendants shouldn't receive reparations would look something like, um, oh, where was I going with that? Sorry, I forgot. Ah,
something
right.
about
The
guilt of
descendants,
the
if
father.
right, I mean, no, no, not guilt of the father, wealth of the father, effectively. Um, if they had had if the African descendants, if the African ancestors had that land, it would have been cultivated. They would have been wealthier than now. Today, the black community would be wealthier overall because it would have been like a longer standing tradition in the black community of like wealth, right? Because I mean, wealth does bring traditions with it in any community. Um, Same for poverty, unfortunately. Um,
Yeah, but if you listen to Thomas Sowell, then the African American community was doing better, like shortly after slavery and leading up to like the civil rights era and like the welfare, like the passage of the welfare.
Well,
Who
true, but
they do
that's a really complicated conversation around Jim Crow and how it was implemented and how it was like repealed because I think there are some serious issues in how it was repealed that never really get discussed. Everyone just talks about Jim Crow getting repealed as like this rah rah thing, but and in some ways it really was, but in other ways like not so much because I mean originally, during Jim Crow in the areas where it was relevant, the African American business owners had a captive market, right? Like they had full access to a specific set of the market that allowed them to grow at a modest rate inside that. But like with any protectionist market, once it gets exposed to the wider market, it dies, right?
yeah.
So it ends up being a situation where the only place where these businesses could survive was inside their little protectionist market, and without that protectionist market, it just withers. So all of the wealth that was generated, all of the middle class status that was generated, just went away overnight.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely way more complex than we can cover here, but
Absolutely.
We will shelve that for later. We'll solve that problem at another time.
Okay.
We have the answers.
We'll solve poverty next week.
Yeah. No big deal. But one way of solving problems is apparently crowdfunding, and you can support
I have
the
yet
border
to donate
wall.
to this wall. I'm
Me
thinking about
neither.
it.
I'll throw him a fiver.
It's up over 7 million.
17 now. It's
Or
17. It's almost 18 million.
Yes.
I will give them a crisp $5 bill to build that wall.
I thought about it. I haven't done it yet, though. I have to check my finances.
Give $1.
Seriously.
Yeah. I can do
Crisp
$1.
$1 bill.
5, that's pushing it, man. Gotta eat. But the funny thing about this is that there was another GoFundMe set up for ladders to climb over the wall.
I thought it was great. I thought that one was great too. I'm like, yes, this is competition. Yes.
Right. They have not raised nearly anywhere close.
I thought it was 60 grand the last time I looked at it. I don't know if it's
it's pretty close to that.
Yeah,
somewhere in there.
All things considered, I mean, 60 grand will buy you a lot of ladders, to be fair.
Right.
But it'll run out pretty quick.
Yeah.
I think I could think of a way to make sure the 60 grand for the ladders doesn't, like, I'd set up an entire, okay. So what I would do is I would go down to Mexico, right? I would set up an entire company in Mexico that has all of these ladders, and then rent the ladder. I send out 2 people with the ladder to make sure that the ladder stays there. They run up the wall. Then I take the ladder and I rent it back to somebody else.
Yeah, I was about to say, because effectively all these ladders are basically just going to end up being ICE property.
Right.
At some point. You might as well just take that 60,000 and just give it to ICE and save everyone some time.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
But 60 grand in Mexico, man. Jeez. Think about that.
Well, it was
that's a lot of fun.
150,275 when I checked on Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
So that is a lot of ladders. But I can only imagine that it'll be like an arms race where ICE just develops some sort of like snipping tool that'll cut the ladder.
What you're gonna see is like some Game of Thrones stuff, right? Where like they got people on top of the wall pushing the ladders off, and then we're dumping like oil on these guys. Get off.
I disavow.
I didn't say that's a good idea. I said that's a possibility to see.
I disavow this possibility.
I like it. Then you get those ladders with like the little hook things that kind of hook onto the wall, so you can't just push them off.
Yeah,
like in Lord of the Rings.
Good old
oh
siege,
my God.
siege warfare.
Yep.
Fuck's sake.
Look, things don't change very much, and that would be awesome. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, we officially, all right, fine. We need 80-foot tall stone walls with murder holes and barricades and towers. I need signal fires.
Are we recreating the Battle of Helm's Deep here?
No, I'm actually, the wall in Game of Thrones? I want that wall.
Oh, you want the wall?
I want the wall. I want fucking ice sheets all over it. I want swinging blades that'll come down and like cause avalanches and shit.
Yes.
It's going to be amazing. We're going to build it so high, it's actually going to have like an icy layer on top where we can send ice shards down to kill everyone.
So you're running
fucking amazing.
You're running for president, right?
Yes, that is my presidential platform. I want the wall from Game of Thrones.
I'm going to make
nothing less. It's going to be huge, and when I say huge, I mean ultra huge.
You thought Trump's wall was huge. My wall just got 10 feet taller.
I'm going to make his fucking wall to a little bitch.
But yeah.
2 points on the little bitch wall. I'm going to make it huge.
2 points on the wall. This wall will never be racist, right? It's not a racist wall.
That's
It
right.
can't be a racist wall. It's a fucking wall. Period. Full stop.
It doesn't care about your skin color. You just don't get through, bitch.
You're right.
That's gonna be part of the platform. Don't worry. If you're white, it will also keep you out.
Number 2, I used to be one of those people that was like, the wall is going to be like, I don't care because it's not going to really work and like that nonsense. Until I heard Tim Pool bring up a pretty good argument, which is, but it will stop, like, because the major argument against the wall is like it doesn't stop the vast majority of illegal immigration in the States.
It doesn't even need to.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's the point. Is the vast majority of illegal immigration it's like 60% is like people overstaying their visas. But this wall will definitely stop the people coming across the border.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, well, because I always heard that, and I was like, so what you're saying is you're admitting it would reduce it by 40%.
Right. Right.
Like, it wouldn't even do that. Like, honestly, if anything, what it would do is it would funnel people because it would almost like be like flowing rivers, right?
Right.
Whereas before, it's just like one giant river flowing our way. We're putting down some stones to go, okay, we want the river to flow this way.
Right.
So that it's easier to deal with it.
Right. Yeah.
Which to me sounds totally reasonable.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And there was also some statistics that Tim Pool brought up, which was that there's other countries that have put up like border walls and like even like an 8-foot chain link fence would reduce like 80% of the people, because what you end up as, another argument you end up with, is people say, well, people will just jump this 8-foot fence. They find out that doesn't actually happen because these migrants are bringing their families with them.
Right.
Yeah. The
Turns out grandma can't jump the 20-foot fence.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they just don't do it. They just go away.
Well, then you'd get some sort of nonprofit sending like bolt cutters to Mexico or something.
Oh, then we just stop that, because that's easily traced. That would be like, no, you get rid of that guy.
Well, they don't have to send them from the U.S.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like the FBI is at least competent enough to be able to follow that.
Right.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
As long as James Comey isn't running the fucking thing, I think we're all right.
Yeah, that's true.
Or Robert Mueller. Can I just point out the man apparently can't fucking investigate a paper bag?
Right.
Yeah.
He's going to impeach Trump any day now. Yeah, you guys keep telling yourselves that.
I wonder what the odds are on him getting impeached in Vegas. Huh.
I'm sorry. Why is he getting impeached in Vegas?
No, he's saying
the odds.
He wonders what the odds in Vegas are for Trump getting impeached. And I look at
got you. Okay.
And I'm like, I can get on that action.
Yeah. I'm like,
right?
Not impeached.
Yep.
Where do I sign up?
Well, I'm just saying, if the odds on either one are like decent enough, I might just put a hedge bet on both.
Right.
Either way, I win.
Well, he could get impeached and not removed from office.
In case anyone's in case anyone's out there listening planning on accusing me of fraud, I was joking. I'm not doing it. Thank you.
That's illegal?
I'm pretty sure that's illegal.
You can't bet on both sides?
It doesn't sound like that's supposed to be legal.
I don't see why not.
It works for the stock market, man. That's what they call I'm just saying that's what shorting a market is.
Shorting.
True, but we're talking about because now we're getting nitty-gritty of what classifies gambling.
Fair. That's a fair point.
Yep. All right.
I mean, because technically speaking, the stock market is gambling, sort of, but you're not gonna you can't. If it was actual gambling, it wouldn't be legal in the first place.
Right.
Most places.
I personally think gambling should be legal because it's whatever, but that's just me.
Well, apparently they've got fucking slot machines everywhere in Nevada, which I'm just like,
they do.
Huh.
I have been there. I know. They even have them in the 7-Elevens and stuff.
Yeah, and the bars. Apparently, bars make more money with the gambling than they do with drinking.
Oh yeah,
believe it.
that exists in Iowa and Illinois, where I live. So
yeah, Oregon, you can play you can gamble in bars. Not like blackjack or anything, but they have like electronic poker or
Yeah, why
slot.
does nobody have fun gambling? I want to go to like a bar and play some fucking blackjack. Like, come on.
Well, if you live in an area with any sort of Native American tribes, maybe they have a
Yeah, but
casino.
they're gonna charge me out the ass.
Yeah, but the buffet is super cheap, man.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It really
Okay.
is.
Well, yeah, because you're in a fucking casino where they're like spending God knows how much cash. They can
Oh yeah.
afford to do that, which is also probably a good reason to go to a casino. I should go to a casino. That sounds fun.
So uh, the next one we have is also related to people who like to take your money. We're going to go on to this union, the Teamsters Local 25 union, who took the $480 initiation fee and dues up front and left several workers with no paychecks or very small paychecks. One person only had $14.52 in her paycheck, and she worked 41 hours that week.
So, question. There's some questions I have with this. Is this it's in Boston, right? Which is it a right to work state or not? That's the question. If it's a right to work state, then this person elected to be part of the union.
I'm not sure.
Let me take a look.
Um,
Boston.
yeah, I don't
Would
know
be
if
New
they're
Jersey, right?
Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
yeah, I don't know if
I
they're,
don't think Massachusetts is the right to work, is it?
but normally the normal practice before was that they'd take it in $32 a week
Right.
until they paid the whole thing.
Because you know that
But
makes sense.
instead, they just took it all at once. And these are seasonal employees too, so it's not like
Right.
they're being represented by the union all the time. It's just
Sure.
during the holidays.
Yeah. So
Well, it sounds like they're not being represented at all.
Massachusetts is not a right to work state. So the reason why that's extremely important to this point is because if it's not a right to work state, a union can do a thing called a closed shop, which is where you're forced to join the union at that point. And at that point, I completely disagree with doing this. If it was a right to work state and you had an option to join the union or not, then I'm like, well, you dummy, don't join the union because they're going to take
Right.
your money.
Yeah.
You were
But yeah.
someone who was in a union before too, right?
Oh yeah, I actually am currently in a union.
Oh,
Yep.
Sorry to hear that.
Well, I thought that closed shops were like made illegal when it was like all union shop stuff now.
They're not in right. That is one of the tenets of right to work.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm just being spoiled by right to work states. Never mind.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, everywhere I've worked at, they were like, union people might talk to you, but they can't, and they can promise you whatever you want, but they can't actually just give it to you.
Sure.
I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. So they kind of like, I don't know, indoctrinated us against making our own unions. And I mean, I've always worked for companies that was really easy to just, so I never really saw the point of having a union, but I guess for bigger companies it makes sense. Though I don't
do
like
appreciate this. The National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, great.
Yeah.
Investigating these guys because I'm like, yeah, no, that is like this whole situation is messed up. When I started working at the place where I work at, and they had the union president come in and have their conversations, everything like that. They didn't take money out right there on the spot. All it was just you sign your name on this piece of paper, we hand you your union card, and here's your union contract. That's it. And then the deductions started. So that's it.
Yeah, boo unions,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But I've always, like I said, I've always been able just to go talk to like where I work now, I can go talk to the general manager. I would probably talk to him at least once a day.
Sure.
So it's not, if I have a problem, I can go talk to whoever I want. But
there are some places where unions make like a decent amount of sense.
Yeah,
a lot of the major corporations should like anything that's on like the Fortune like 10 or the Fortune 100 or some shit like that. Those companies, they tend to be rather manipulative, and you and and you need a nice strong counterpoint of a workers union. Now,
I don't even mean that. I'm talking more about more like blue collar contractors.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Like for those guys, unions make perfect sense. Welding makes perfect sense. Electricians make perfect sense.
Unions, absolutely. Like the plumbers and pipe fitters, those guys. The IBEW, which is the International Brotherhood of Electricians, absolutely.
Yeah, I love those guys. Those guys are great. Like there are some unions that are actually legitimate, good, healthy parts of the economy, and then there are some unions that aren't.
Right, for sure. And also there are some unions that are extremely too political.
Yes.
Teachers union, I'm looking at you.
That's one of them. That is one of them. That is a somewhat egregious union, and I could kind of get behind breaking those up a little bit, toning down their power.
Well, I mean, the teachers union in theory is a great idea,
right?
But it's just, I don't know.
What it actually does is bullshit.
Yeah, because the idea of like a whole bunch of teachers banding together to, make their situation a bit better makes perfect sense. Because teachers normally just kind of get pushed aside,
get boned constantly.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, I've never been a fan of public sector unions. Just private sector unions, because the union in a private sector has skin in the game, where if the company that's being unionized goes under, then they lose everything too. So they kind of want to keep it afloat.
The public. I was on one of these streams about a month or two ago, and someone brought up the idea of it's literally paying the politician that you're negotiating with for their vote, and I was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, my mind just went. I was like that meme on Facebook of the guy with his in his chair where his head just opens up to the breadth of the universe. It was a completely paradigm shift, is what it was.
That was your galaxy brain moment.
Yeah,
that was me, man. We were talking about that, and it was weird that nobody ever. Well, I've heard it before, but nobody ever thought of it that way. That the person who's negotiating the contract is then getting campaign contributions from that union.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I was like,
that should stop.
Is that okay? Can they do that? That seems kind of like they're using my tax dollars to pay themselves to run.
For sure. But I look at organized labor as there's some of it in there that was necessary to play some politics because there was the lobbying on the big business side. So they had to get political a little bit. But there are some that are just you guys are just it's all mucked up down at the bottom. You guys don't know I don't know where the government stops and the union begins at some of these. And it's just
Well, there's some, I don't remember which unions they were. When I was at a Patriot Prayer rally, there was unions standing with Antifa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, yeah. They're a bunch of retards. You stand with Antifa, you guys are literally banding together with a bunch of rejects that are communist revolutionaries, anarcho-communist revolutionaries. And I'm if I ever saw that, I would actually, if I saw any of the union members for the union I'm a part of, I'd be like, you guys are retarded. You do realize who the black bloc protesters are, right? I know that you agree with the ideas that they're presenting, but if you dig it down into the ideology of the black bloc, you guys are diametrically opposed, completely opposed to the idea. Unless you aren't, then I'm going to get out of the union right now.
Well, I mean, because effectively, I mean, there's very few things you could call Antifa other than terrorists. So,
right.
I mean, they're not exactly ISIS. So credit to them for that. But the goals really aren't that different
than the Red Army.
well, no, I mean the goal, the primary goal behind their organization is, make people scared to come out and speak politically.
Right.
Um, like I don't care which side of the aisle you're on or who you're doing it for, what ideology you're doing it for.
Political
Generally
violence is
speaking,
political violence, period.
Right.
political violence bad.
Yep. I
Well,
don't
these guys,
care.
I don't know if you guys have interacted with Antifa very much, but they do pretty much everything in their power to try to get you to hit them, including like hitting you when you're not looking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting.
The really
I'm sorry.
crazy part about this is the Proud Boys do a very similar thing. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's like who's starting the fight at that point? It's like they're both yelling at each other, and they're both like the little sister, like with their finger like a half an inch away from their brother, saying, "I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you." And then someone swings somewhere, and then there's a big knockout, drag out fight in the street. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
Everyone trying to say it wasn't me.
yeah. Can we just not? Can we just like stop hitting people? Like that's when you have people like me are like, do you guys remember you know why the civil rights movement succeeded so well? It's because these people were marching down the streets arm in arm when they turned the fucking hoses on them and they got blasted apart. They didn't lay a finger on these people. Nonviolence puts you on a moral high ground above all of this.
I was actually kind of looking forward to, the Proud Boys just getting a whole bunch of Spartan shields and marching around naked with just the shields.
Listen to Sabaton.
No, better like listen. Remember like the old trap songs they used to make out of the 300 movie, where it's like "This is Sparta," and then it goes into like techno drop.
Right,
Hell
yeah.
yeah, let's get some techno Viking shit going on while they're marching through the streets naked with their shields.
Well, I used to be a fan of the Proud Boys, but the ones that I had met were pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which
Well, most
just
of them
like
seem
any
to
other
be.
organization, they're just you get there usually a lot of cool people, and then you get like the assholes.
Yeah.
But it did
You mean
seem
the ones
like
in charge?
no, it wasn't the ones in charge. It was just kind of like the guys who were ready. They showed up ready for a fight,
Right.
and they
Well, that's not what I mean when I say the guys in charge. I'm saying the guys that'll end up. They're not the ones that are making the decisions. They're just the ones that end up forcing everyone to make decisions.
right.
Like base stickman that walks around like beating people up,
Yeah, I don't like
right?
that guy, Kyle
Like,
Chapman. No.
like I mean, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but like he needs to understand that whenever he does that, like I said, he may not be the one that's technically in charge, but when he does that, he's the one that's making the decision for the entire group that this is
Yep.
where this is going.
Yeah, and I don't think people think of that, especially when you get into these like rally situations. Because I was in one in Portland when Antifa it was a big brawl in Portland, and it was all over the internet for like a week.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it was the one where they threw fireworks into the Patriot Prayer crowd.
Sounds like Antifa, yeah.
Yeah, I was close enough that I could feel it. And then, like, if you watch the video, they throw them into the crowd, and two of them go off. But like before that, we walked down the street, and then they were throwing like bottles with urine and water and like just typical Antifa stuff they were throwing.
Right.
And then we turned a corner and we went down another street on the same block, and then they marched parallel with us the next block over. And when we got to the corner, they kind of came down, and then so our guys, the Proud Boys, went up to meet them, and then the Antifa threw the mortars, and then you can see like Patriot Prayer, or Proud Boy, or somebody come running out from the Patriot Prayer side and just like run up to one of the Antifa guys and just tried to punch him. And then that's pretty much what started it, other than the fireworks.
Other than the fireworks?
I think the fireworks, in my opinion, in that situation, the fireworks would be it's close for me to say, why don't you fuck off? Like, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it was just it's like a chaotic scene, so you can't really you don't have a lot of time to process everything.
Right.
And I was trying to live stream it, and then as soon as that first mortar went off, I turned off and put my phone in my pocket because I'm like, okay, someone's coming at me, I'm gonna freaking punch them in the throat or something.
Yeah.
And then when the two crowds started fighting each other, I don't know, I didn't think it through. I just ran in there with everybody else,
Yep.
But I kind of hung off to the side because I didn't want to go over there because I wasn't there to beat people up.
Right.
That's not why I went. I went to support free speech and
Right.
patriotism. Um, and so I was ready, but I was like, I'm not going to beat these people up. And then they kind of had, people on the ground. Both sides did this too. And that was like a little too much for me.
Yeah.
Um, but it does seem like the Proud Boys very much are interested. They're interested in getting into a fight,
Right. Yeah.
but they would prefer not to start it.
Right. Yeah. They're not. You don't show up to one of these protests in some larpy fucking battle armor, and not their idea is like, well, we're ready to defend ourselves, and I'm like, but you showed up in armor, man. Like.
Well, yeah, their reasoning is that this is our protest, and they showed up to our protest. That's their reasoning.
Well, the unfortunate part about that is that's American democracy in action. Is because you can't be
it's not your protest.
Yeah. If you're in public, they can come over there and shout at you as much as they want. It's when they lay a hand on you that, yeah, that's probably where the line is.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't even go that far that they can come over and shout at you. Like if you're holding an event, then you should be able to hold that event, and the police shouldn't someone shouldn't be able to just disrupt it by being louder than you.
I mean, maybe they shouldn't be able to, but that's sort of the nature of free speech.
No, I don't think so, because if that's true, then I could just show up to any women's march or anything with a megaphone and just blare it, and they couldn't do anything.
That's called the heckler's veto, man.
Right.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
Well, you can, but I don't think that you probably should. Though I don't know
Well,
how to restrict that without limiting free speech. So.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's lots of things you can do that you don't like. You can bash yourself over the head with a bat. That doesn't mean you should,
But
right?
at what point? Because if you've been next to one of those megaphones when they're making a lot of noise, at what point is it causing damage to your eardrums, and can you defend yourself?
Oh, right, yeah. Oh no, I'm one of those people that I would just again, I enjoy when someone's being really rude like that. I'm like, dude, could you get the hell out of here with that thing? They're like, no, I don't have to move. I'm like, I'm just gonna call the cops because I'm pretty sure that you shouldn't be here with that megaphone.
I mean, if you're looking for if you're looking for a reasonable solution to the whole affair, just to make sure that everyone is equally, represented, what you can do is dual wield foghorns and just put them in their face instead.
Air horns, yeah. Get out of here.
It's all the fucking noise they're making anyway.
I know what I'm doing next time.
Oh yeah,
I'm just saying, it's totally fair.
Yeah.
At that point,
free speech.
Just like you're at an NBA game. I always completely side note. I was one of the pranks I wanted to pull on someone when I was it would be have one of those with duct tape, right? So in my car, so I could quick pull the tab, the duct tape pushes it down and just chuck it into their car, that type of shit. Yeah. But yeah, no, I would totally
There you go. That's the new Proud Boy weapon, sonic grenades.
Yep.
They just throw in tape down foghorns.
Yep.
Well, so if it's okay for Antifa to show up at a Patriot Prayer rally or a Trump rally or whatever, and making so much noise that they can't actually hold their event, then what's to stop conservatives from going to any other protest and doing the
Nothing.
same thing?
Absolutely
not a single
nothing.
thing.
And then at that point, if they're not, the two sides aren't, because they're not talking to each other at that point.
Right.
Nobody's talking. Nobody's allowing anybody to talk. What else are you going to do besides fight?
I mean, there is, but you also have to understand that is kind of what Antifa's looking for. Like
Right.
they're idiots and they think they're going to win the revolution. They're not, but
No, of
like,
course not. My wife
like,
could probably kick their ass.
yeah, probably all of them collectively because they're a bunch of pussbags. But I don't know, man. There's not a good solution for how to do that without, because the whole point is everybody's supposed to respect it because it's in their own best interests. If people aren't respecting it, even though it's in their own best interests, I mean, maybe they do need to just get into a fight so they can get their ass kicked and it'll be over.
Well,
Just let them,
it hasn't,
let them start the fight so they can get the shit kicked out of them and then they're done.
well, it hasn't stopped Antifa by beating them up, or at least not yet.
No,
At
no,
least
not
not
what
in
I mean.
Portland.
Because once we get to a point where the talking really stops and the fists start really coming out, um, eh, well, you're not going to be doing a whole lot of going to protests when someone comes in with a hacksaw and rips your legs off. So I'm just saying there is going to get to a point where if it keeps escalating like this, where it's going to get nasty, it's
Yeah,
going to
and
get ugly,
it's
and
going
they're
to
going
get
to
into
lose.
and it's going to get into physical violence, and that's when the
None of this pussy shit with base stickman running around with his little wooden shield and stick either.
Oh
Dude,
no,
I saw a picture of that guy. I'm like, what is that guy doing? What is he? What is this?
Well, no, I mean, like, if he wants to run around there and be able to like beat people up because he's got sort of an excuse, I mean, good for him. But like, we're not talking about that level of violence. We're talking about if this continues the way it is, um, it's going to get nasty.
Right.
And if that's what they want, like, I don't have much sympathy for you if you get torn the fuck apart. If that's what you
Right.
wanted.
Yeah. If you want to get your ass kicked, then come out here and get your ass kicked. like it's one of those things. Like Jordan's completely right. Like if they escalate to that point of like, well, there's someone shows up with a megaphone, you bring in air horns, and it goes through that nuclear arms race, right? At some point, the conversation is going to stop. Someone's going to beat the living fuck out of each other, right? There's going to be broken bodies on the street, and there's going to be people like us. I'm like, so what have we learned here?
well, that's
Pretty
already
much
happening. I
Right.
mean, that happens every summer in Portland. That's basically
Oh,
how I spend my
like
summer.
what I'm saying is we haven't seen shit yet.
Right.
Like what I'm saying, it hasn't even gotten close to the peak yet. If this is going to if this is the trajectory we're going on, it's going to take a minute, but it's not. This is nowhere near the end, and we either need to figure out a way to bring the temperature down and to like get these guys out of here, or like put in some sort of I don't know restrictions that at least allow people to deal with that sort of thing. Because we are like in a point where free speech is kind of being used as like a weapon against free speech,
Right.
which is really ironic. But it's basically we're being hoisted by our own petard a little bit. Um, like I don't want to impose any sort of restrictions on free speech, but maybe in that instance, especially what he's talking about, where it's literally you just going out there with a megaphone going blah.
Well, I
I don't
think
know.
most cities have some sort of like noise ordinance.
Yep.
Also true.
And the police, like I don't know, the police in Portland won't do a damn thing because the mayor's the police chief and he's a jackwagon. But yeah, I think there needs to be. I mean, I don't think it's limiting free speech because people have a right to associate with who they want to and to not associate with who they don't
Right.
want to. And so, like, what has happened in Portland is the
It's actually
Patriot Prayer.
It's really like sorry to step on here, Cody, but like it's actually really easy to do this, which is you just put it all on private property. Like then they're trespassing, and you get to arrest them.
True, but that
Well,
also limits the scope a bit of what
True.
the march can be. Because I mean, another thing you could do, which is what they tried to do in Charlottesville, sort of, um, would be just if you know that you've got two completely diametrically opposed protests. Is there any particular reason that you have to have the two protests grinding gears right next to each other?
No.
I mean,
you
I
don't
can't think of
have
any.
to, but
I'm
like,
not thinking of any particular reason why that's a good idea, and I can think of a lot of reasons why it's a bad idea.
well,
Um,
the thing is um, I keep using Patriot Prayer because that's just what I know. But like
Hmm.
the Patriot Prayer people or the conservatives, they'll get a permit to have a march. Antifa doesn't do that. They just show up. And the Antifa decides to have their counter protest, which is what they call it, which I don't think it's a counter protest. It's just a disruption. Um, they'll have it across the street. And they want to have it there because they say they're protecting the community from fascists, essentially.
Well, which they're not, because
No,
they're the fascists. But
well, I mean, that's kind of why I'm saying maybe this is one thing where the federal government could be like, okay, look, if you're going to hold protests, they need to be at least like a mile apart, something like that.
I can get behind that.
yeah,
Some nice safe distance where the police, if they see the two groups trying to get together, the police can step in and be like, no, we're gonna shuffle you off these ways.
where we had the rally was on a federal park in the city of Portland, so it was owned
Hmm.
by the federal government, and so we had federal police. I forget who it was, DHS or somebody. They were there, and they like put up barriers around it, so you couldn't get in. They searched everybody for weapons, um, and so you couldn't bring any knives or pepper spray or poles that are bigger than like an inch for your flag or whatever. But they didn't have anything set up on the Antifa side for that. And so that was a big problem. But they did a really good job of keeping us separated. The problem was when we went on our march and the local law enforcement, the Portland police, were supposed to off they told the leader of the march that they were going to escort us on the march, and then they just didn't show up.
Wow.
They were like they were back, they were on their vans, and then once the fighting started, they pretty much just filled the whole city block with like pepper spray. And that stuff, man, that stuff stings. Uh, Even if you don't get it directly in your eyes or
Oh
on
yeah,
your
if it's in
face,
your vicinity, yeah,
if
you
it's
you
in
know
the
it.
air, man. But that's where, I mean, and Portland's a hyper progressive city, and we had like multiple Antifa groups like coming down on us from different directions, and it felt like being in a siege. I would imagine. I mean, I've never been in a siege before, but we just have like hordes of black clad people coming one direction, and then from the opposite direction, another group of black clad people. And then as you're walking, you have more black clad people kind of standing in alleyways, like shouting at you and yelling at you. And then you have people in like shop windows that are just filming you and watching everything. Um, it was really weird. I highly recommend it, by the way.
Oh, dude, I would be one of those people that would show up at one of these things, right? And I just the minute I would see some of these people, I'm like, "What are you doing? Why are you wearing a balaclava in your head, man? Like, what? Like, you do realize you're the joke here, right? You're a fascist!" And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I absolutely am not. Get out of here, racist!" No, that you're also wrong. Like, I would just be like, I would be that guy that is just while they're screaming at me, just all sort of emotional. I'm cool, calm, and collected. And the minute that any sort of like violence would break out, I just like, well, I guess we're done here, and I just wander off. Like,
Well, the problem with the whole just wander off thing is they follow you,
okay, that's fine.
just so you know.
Oh, for
Well,
sure, they
they
can
follow
follow me.
you, they wait till you're not around the police, and then they jump you.
Sure. So I get my ass kicked. I get my ass kicked. Sounds good.
Just wander off in groups of 2 or 3.
Right, yeah.
Well, if there's 2 of you, you could probably take on all of Antifa.
Right.
There's one, they might be able to.
My response is like, this would be a bad idea, guys. It's a terrible idea. You might want to not. You might want to think this through. Beat my ass.
I mean, to be fair, like, didn't they get 2 Marines with like 12 Antifa guys?
I don't know how much they were fighting back, but yeah, I did hear that. I mean, if you get enough people, they can kick your ass for sure.
Oh, right. I'm not dismissing the idea that I'll probably get the shit kicked out of me, but I will never, in any one of these protests, if I ever go to any of these, I am not going to be a person that will do physical violence, because think about it from this perspective, right? If they beat the shit out of me, then, and they just have this like video of someone who's sitting there, was like, no, man, you guys are retarded. You're ridiculous. And just a cool, calm, and collected voice, and some random retard decides they want to beat the shit out of me, and that's on camera, that goes viral. I'm not saying I want to be a martyr, but I'm not, and I'm also not going to go out of my way to create the situation to be a martyr. But if it does happen, I'm going to use the moral outrage of, like, this is just some random 30-year-old fat guy who was out there protesting himself. And you guys decided to kick the shit out of him while he wasn't laying a hand on you. You guys look like the assholes in this situation. Flat out.
Yeah. I mean, I do think the Proud Boys would. I do think the Proud Boys would actually be doing themselves a huge favor if, whenever they do get into these altercations, they just refuse to punch back.
Right.
Like, I think they maybe these groups need a little bit more training, where it's like, look, we understand you're going to be in violent situations. Learn how to, learn how to take a hit.
Right.
Right. Learn how to, like, defend yourself non-violently.
Right.
Because that's going to make you look so much better.
So much better in the press. So much better in the public. Because think about this situation where, like, Gavin McInnes is out there, right? And there's someone screaming in his face, calling him a racist and a Nazi and a fascist, right? And he's just like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. And that actually, like, when you just non-committally, like, just dismiss these people, right? They get so angry. Like, this is a thing of, like, being picked on when I was growing up, right? That I learned is that the bullies and the people that want to commit physical violence, if you don't give that to them and you're just like, no, man, and you dismiss the living crap out of them, they get so angry about it. Just insanely so angry about it.
But they rarely do anything about it because they need an excuse.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like,
and
I would defend myself. I wouldn't don't go out of your way to start a fight, that for sure, and try to do what you can to avoid it. But if these people, if they know where you park, they slash your tires, they'll follow you. That's why we had to get a shuttle bus to go into the event and then to leave.
Yep.
That's what the try to prevent that sort of thing from happening.
No, I get it.
Look, I'm just saying, if they went full Gandhi, like, would there be some of them that probably ended up getting hurt? Yes. But you're in a situation where there's going to be some of them that are going to get hurt anyway.
Right.
If they go full pacifist, that turns everyone against Antifa. Because you can't justify beating the shit out of a pacifist. You just can't.
Right.
There's no way to justify that.
Those dirty neutrals.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
How dare he refuse to defend himself?
Right. Like, this is the thing that I've been, like, when I saw these two groups fighting, I was like, the idea of nonviolence and nonviolent protests, like, the reason why the civil rights movement worked so well is because they understood that idea of seizing the moral high ground through a overarching idea of nonviolence. It's so powerful. Like,
well, yeah, we've got two sides right now that are both saying they have the moral high ground, but neither of them proving it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, the difference here is, like, they were protesting the U.S. government, and the reputation of the U.S. government matters. Where Antifa is just an anonymous black bloc of people who face no consequences for their actions unless they get arrested in the moment in the act.
Sure, but you're assuming that the average person knows all the backstory.
Right.
Like we're in a position where there's still a lot of people that have no clue what's going on.
They have no clue about the black bloc.
There are people that don't know who Hillary Clinton is.
Right. Oh, right? You saw that?
Yes.
You saw that?
Yes, I saw that. There are people who do not have any clue who Hillary Clinton is. There are people that don't know who Obama is. Okay. Right. There are people that have no clue that we were ever at war with Iraq. There are people that don't know what 9/11 is. There are people that are completely out of the loop.
Right.
Right. And those people we're probably never going to reach because they've somehow sealed themselves in a fucking hermetically sealed bubble of just bliss and joy. I have no idea how they did it. I'm jealous, is what I'm saying.
Right. I don't know how you managed to fucking become so
serious,
so ignorant that you're like, man,
holy shit, your life must be awesome. I have no idea. Anyway, but yeah, some people we're just never going to reach. But the average person looking at this situation, all they see are two idiots arguing.
Right.
That's all they see. They don't know the backstory. They don't really care. But if they see one group that's just clubbing the other one over the head and the other one just sort of taking it and saying, no, we're not fighting back. We're actually here for a reason.
Right.
Like we've got an actual message we're trying to push here. Like we're not stooping to your fucking level.
Right. Yeah, you absolutely seize the moral high ground and do not let it go.
You're working on the presumption that Antifa cares.
No, I'm not. I'm actually assuming they don't care. And that actually plays into the idea of that because we're not playing to the revolutionary communists at that point. What we're doing is we're playing to the general public that sees someone who is just basically like they're screaming at this person, right? And he's just like, no, man, I'm not any of those things that you ever accuse me of. Like, you have no idea who I am. You're sitting there with your face covered up, screaming at me, and I'm telling you, go away. Leave me alone. And you're not. Like you could sit there and scream at me as much as you want. I'm not going to lay a finger on you. I would actually say that. And I'm like, I'm not going to touch you. I'm just going to tell you to go away, or we can have a conversation about why you're wearing this ridiculous getup.
Not to mention, it seems to be feeding into Antifa's narrative that words are violence.
Right.
Like it feeds that narrative where they can point to that and say, look, we screamed at you, you hit us. There's a direct correlation there between words and violence.
Right.
Words can cause violence. If you give them that, like if you hit them when they start screaming at you, you're giving them their point. Well, you're granting them the point, whether you realize it or not.
For screaming at you, no, you don't do that.
Right. No, but again, remember that their point is down the line. If you use mean words, it causes violence. It doesn't have to be direct. At any point, if violence comes in after they start it with screaming and yelling and like agitating, you've given them the point.
Right.
You're giving them what they want.
If that's their point, that it's I wouldn't call that words equaling violence, but
but that's how they're going to inflate it. That's part of their message.
If someone's fucking like harassing you, essentially, like yelling at you, calling you names, following you around, like poke, oh, like the Happy Gilmore thing, the guy who's like, you're going to miss this putt, you jackass.
Oh, sure.
Like that guy.
Yeah. And trust me, dude, it takes a lot of self-control to just ignore those people. Or it is far harder because every fiber in your being wants to turn around and slap them in the mouth and tell them to shut the fuck up and go away. But I have found that it pisses them off far more by not doing it, because you have to understand, and you have to like have your own self-control in this of like, this is what they want. They want me to hit them. Why would I give my enemy what they want at all? Deny them completely what they want.
Well, not to mention, like what Matt was saying with the moral high ground, it's just if you defend yourself, you might be in the right from the outsider's perspective. If you are a pacifist about it, you're morally beyond reproach, no matter who's
Right.
looking.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think the fighting does favors for
anybody.
either side.
Yeah. And I get what you're saying. It's one of those things that, like, it seems like it would be the right thing to do, but you have to kind of take yourself out of the out of the moment and realize, what does this accomplish by me stepping into this, and rather than stepping away from it and looking at it, like, I can use this opportunity to demonstrate that these people are not good people at all. Because these are things that all of us know that these people that Antifa is not good people. They're ridiculous. They're hypocritical, and they preach a message of being against violence when they actually use it. So these are things that all of us know, and the average person just sees some retard in a black suit screaming at some retard with an American flag on, and then eventually someone swings at someone, and then it just goes into a gigantic street brawl. No one wants to see street brawls. No one. Because it doesn't do anything. It's like, oh, it's just two idiots beating the shit out of each other. No one cares.
Two gangs fighting.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's just it's a gang.
I'm just
it's
saying,
a gang fight.
If you took like a video of one of the fights from Proud Boys and Antifa and just put "America, fuck yeah" in the background,
yeah,
it would totally fit. That song should not fit any situation that you're a part of.
Right.
That's usually not a good thing.
And Cody, I am not telling you that you have to do this. This is just how I would handle this situation.
I'm just saying, if you want to look back in history at one of the greatest tacticians that ever lived, it would probably be Gandhi.
And Martin Luther King is up there too.
Martin Luther King, I think, is a little bit different because there's like specific things with Gandhi where there's like actual resource acquisition and control, and like there's like we'd have to get more into detail with the difference between Gandhi and Martin Luther King. Anyway, I'm just saying, one of the greatest tacticians that's ever lived didn't throw a single punch. There's something to be learned there.
I don't think, like, I agree that like fighting is not the answer, and it is very difficult to, and I've talked about this with people in Patriot Prayer before. It's very difficult to get people to commit to that sort of level of nonviolence because it is like completely, especially if you get like a bunch of these guys, man, they're like construction workers, you know,
right?
They're like guys. They punch each other for fun.
Oh, for sure.
Just teasing each other.
Sure, but you're gonna have to get them set down and be like, look, if you hit someone, you're out. You got to go. Like, no punching people, no hitting people, no pushing people, no screaming at people, no initiating anything of any kind at our rallies.
Yeah.
They're going to have to get them to like look at you and agree that this is how this is going to go. Because if they can't agree to that, then they shouldn't be in the rally, honestly.
Yeah, but then you also get people that don't really care who, like, about the group or about the reason that you're there. They want to punch Antifa or Proud Boys or whatever.
Then they can go punch. They can go punch those people.
Well, it's hard to weed those people out.
Sure.
You know?
And think about this.
The media doesn't help either.
Oh, for
How about this? So something else you could do, that this was actually something that Martin Luther King did, with the whole idea of linking arms. There's a few things that does. It's group solidarity, but it also shows who's actually part of the group. If you've got some idiot waving around like an American flag by himself, punching out Antifa protesters, it's much harder to say that he's a part of the protest if everyone else in the protest is like in a fucking like linked arms like barricade singing Kumbaya, you know?
You mean some hero waving an American flag.
I disavow.
I think some of these people of the Proud Boys think they're like Captain America punching the fascists, right? Like,
yeah.
And I'm like, no, you're not, man. You're just some random dude who
join the military if you want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
Or like join a boxing club or something.
Yeah. Go run laps.
Go learn martial
But yeah.
arts.
Right.
What I'm
Yeah.
saying
Hopefully
is
they'll
these
teach you.
protests are going to have to get more nuanced. These protests are going to have to get more sophisticated. They're going to have to get more organized.
One,
Like,
the right has to understand that they're fighting an uphill battle,
Right.
yes,
especially with the media.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to.
like they're going to have to use more advanced tactics.
Right.
Yeah. So talking about advanced tactics,
Mhm.
Syria withdrawal. What do you guys think, huh? Does
that's
four-
5D chess right there.
Me
40,
pers-
yeah,
me
40 chess
personally
or
with
what?
the
5D
Syria,
chess, better than 4D chess.
right? Me personally with Syria, like I understand the idea that we're not accomplishing anything in there anymore, and it's just a waste of resources. I get that. The idea though is when we turned down the troop involvement in Iraq before, that's what directly created ISIS to begin with. Like it resurged and found all of this territory, and it created an even worse problem. So I don't know how to get out of that without like how to withdraw the troops out of that region without that happening again. You know?
I mean, but it's never going to end if we leave the troops in there. Is the problem. Like
Right.
we're no matter what, we're stuck in a quagmire. Because honestly, the fact that we went in there in the first place was what trapped us in the quagmire.
Right.
The only thing I think we can do is try and just pull ourselves out of it and hope for the best. Because we know that what we're doing right now isn't working. So yeah,
I don't know, man. Like it's so screwed up that I don't even.
Once you leave and ISIS comes back, or you stay in perpetuity and keep
or fuck it.
ISIS.
Can we just like look, because the Kurds are like worried that we're just abandoning them there, which is probably fair. Um, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go to Syria. We're gonna nuke the capital. We're gonna give the country to the Kurds. Done.
I disavow.
I would be more okay. So an idea of basically occupying them like we did Japan, and we're actually the government in that type of situation until these idiots figure it out on their own.
Well, how many decades are we talking about though? Because I mean, we're still in Japan.
Right. But Japan's got most of their shit together.
I
I
mean,
think
I'd say Japan has their shit more together than we do in some ways, but
right.
Yeah,
I don't know,
that
man.
sounds like a
like,
bad.
I
It
mean,
doesn't seem like there's a
there are
good
instances
answer.
of it. There are instances of it working out.
Right.
Like Germany is obviously doing well, in spite of themselves in some ways.
Right.
Um, China is doing okay. Korea is doing great. Well, mostly. If we just we'll ignore the North stepchild. Um, Japan's doing fine. Like all these countries where we go in, we set up governments, and it works out. That's great. Um, the Middle East seems to be a different animal.
Right.
Like we go in there, and it never seems like the best thing we ever did for the Middle East was putting Saddam fucking Hussein in place, and that's not saying a lot.
Right.
Like that's basically just the shiniest turd they have. It's not even a shiny turd.
The I think a route out of this is more public support of Tawhidi. Like if there was more
Imam Tawhidi?
yeah, absolutely.
Are
We
we
talked
putting
about
Imam
him.
Tawhidi in power?
Didn't we
I
talk about him like last week?
I'm complete like
Yeah, I mean, we did.
out of the options, putting Imam Tawhidi in a in power and then having him unite the entire Middle East under his caliphate. I know. I've actually
Giving
thought of,
Imam Tawhidi a caliphate.
right.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
The
And
benevolent caliphate.
I mean, to be fair, maybe the only reason he's telling us all this is because he wants the West to believe in him. Because remember, he used to be like an extremist Islamist.
hey, if he's playing 5D chess with us, man, then good
it's a
on him.
long con.
Fucking,
Right, yeah.
This is long con 6D chess. This is beyond 5D chess.
Yeah. Like
Oh,
if he's doing that, then he's got me fooled. But
He's the ultimate sleeper agent. I'm just saying, we're going to give him
right.
charge of the Middle East, and he's going to fucking take over the world.
Well, I
I'm
don't
just saying,
know.
100 years from now, you saying Imam Tweedy needs to be in charge of the fucking Middle East is going to be this fucking shot that rung around the world.
But if you
I
look
can
at
hear it. I can see the Imam right now, just like slapping his hands together, like, yes,
yes, I
yes.
convinced one of them. Yes, but
Oh no, they figured it out. Watch
but
out, man! You're gonna get one of those fatwas.
sure. Apparently, the Liberalists have already been like called down. There's a guy I found, like someone found a video of this dude bitching about atheism and liberalist. Like we're, and I was like, hey,
Hey, we're being bitched about. Yes,
Made it. Success.
we've made it.
But if you look at like how Christianity actually kind of grew up, right? It was centralized power from the Catholic faith, and then out of that centralized power, there was the Enlightenment that said, "Hey, you guys are acting like a bunch of retards, and you ran the Spanish Inquisition and killed a bunch of people. Like, you need to knock that off." And so the Catholic faith slowly was able to reform itself into something that was more along the lines of like what Western values and Western civilization was, because they didn't want to just get booted out. So centralizing the power of a religion into a singular dictator for that religion that then sets the policy under what he believes. Yeah, they might fight him on it, but then he's the one that says, no, this is what Islam is. You know?
So you want like an Islamic
Well,
pope?
I don't think that. I like honestly, it seems like every single area of the Middle East, with a couple of exceptions, pretty much would require a strongman dictator
Right.
to take over. I don't see Imam Tweedy as being sufficiently strongman. Like
Yeah.
there's a reason why I was giving the example initially of Saddam Hussein being like the best thing that happened to that area for a
Right.
long time.
Right.
Like I'm not saying that Saddam Hussein was a good guy, not at all. Um, but I mean, compared to the alternatives,
Right.
Yeah, I think
like would you like to be poisoned at breakfast or at dinner, basically?
Right.
dinner, please.
Exactly.
Cake or
Here's
death?
here's here's your
Cake or
Saddam
death?
Hussein. Yeah.
I have the cake, please. Oh, we're out of
Yes.
cake. Oh, so it's death then.
Here's your death cake.
What kind of cake?
Yeah.
That
I already
matters.
told you, death cake.
I'll take the death cake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Medalist.
Yeah, I do. I don't know like how much like geography plays a role in this, but like I had kind of I don't think this is my original theory. I probably picked it up somewhere else, but I think that like because the Middle East is basically like desert and resources are scarce, that in order to survive, essentially, you need like an authoritarian type or like a strongman type person to basically ration out the resources.
I
And I don't
mean,
know if that's necessarily true, but it's just a thought that I had that
it's possibly one aspect, but I think it's worth noting
right.
the like the culture of the people we're talking about. Because, for instance, in Saudi Arabia, when in the last couple of generations, they had like a so-called reformer in one of their kings. Um, those reforms were getting the army to use guns and getting the population to use cars, where he had to fight a rebellion on both fronts to convince the population that this wasn't fucking going against the religion.
Oh, Wahhabi is fucked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wahhabi is completely ridiculous,
Yeah.
but like I'm just saying that's how conservative these people are.
Right. Right.
Like we think we have stubborn conservatives. We have no fucking clue what stubborn conservatives look like.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
that's maybe it was
like
a bad thing that he won that war to give them guns.
look, all I know is it takes a lot to get a lot of these dudes to get them to change, Um, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of convincing. It apparently takes a lot of bloodshed to do anything different. Holy shit. Um, yeah, you've got to be really willing to wade through the shit for decades
Well, yeah, even like
to get even small reforms.
if you read history of the Middle East, like going all the way back to uh, the Akkadian Empire, it is basically like a strong man conquers everything, takes over, and then when he dies, his son has to go out, or his heir has to go out and reconquer everybody, basically, because they all go into rebellion. And it was the same, when Rome took over there, like the Persian Empire. You had these
Hmm.
um, emperors would have to go and campaign, and then they'd be fine for like 5 years, and then rebellion would break out because they're sick of their shit, and then they have to go back and pacify everybody, and it's just always been. And I don't know why. I
There's
don't know why it's
also
so.
another element to think about this in the Middle East, right? Is these countries that are set up was the fucking British doing. The British did all of this, and they didn't know what the hell they were doing.
Those
When
British.
the Brits fucked it all up, man. Because they put the Sunni, like Iraq's a great example, right? We have the Shia Muslims, we have Sunni, and we have the Kurds, and they're all in one fucking country. And the Brits just drew a line that said, "Well, this is Iraq now. All of you guys that are on here, you guys own this land." And they're like, "Well, we hate those guys. we we
What else
absolutely
is new?
yeah." And they just didn't respect the idea that these borders were put in there, right? And
Yeah.
So one of the best things that might happen is just erase all the borders and then let everybody fight it out and figure it out.
maybe,
Well, I mean, like even that wouldn't really solve it because whatever progress we have figured out is going to go by the wayside. Look at the UAE. UAE wouldn't want that at all. Like they're doing fine.
yeah,
They love what they've got. They've got like fucking. They've got the awesome Spire. They've got fucking police flying around on like helio bikes and shit. Like they're doing fine. They like it. They like their situation exactly the way it is. And
right.
there are some areas where like Qatar that could probably use a little bit of shaking up. Um, but I mean, not to mention how the fuck. Can you imagine Israel's response to this? If we just
Uh,
fucking win it, they would
not
be
just
displeased.
not just no, but hell no.
Yeah, they'd be quite displeased
Yeah.
if it's like, hey, by the way, this entire region up for grabs. Have fun, guys.
I don't know. I think Israel will be like, sweet, we'll just take it all.
I mean, maybe, but like, I think Israel is more defensively focused, honestly, except for the Gaza Strip for some reason.
Man, they're tough, man. These Israelis.
Yeah.
They
They know
they
that they're on they're surrounded by a bunch of people that would much rather burn that country out of existence than have it there.
Yeah, I'm just saying, maybe like you know how they've got that wall around certain parts of Israel. Maybe they just need to finish that one and then build a second wall,
Yeah.
and then they're done. They're good.
No, you need like 3 walls like Constantinople.
I mean Istanbul, right?
Nope.
No, Constantinople.
It's nobody's business but the Turks.
They they knocked down the walls and then called it Istanbul.
Oh, but then it was Constantinople.
No,
Yeah.
Istanbul.
I go on with this joke forever.
Crusade. Time for crusade.
Oh, the Fourth Crusade?
Sure, why not? 4th, 8th, 12th, who knows?
Well, the
A lot
Ottoman
of
Empire
There's
got
going to
their
be a
ass.
certain irony in asking the Jews to deus volt the Muslims. I'm just saying.
All I have to say about this, man, is like this is a quagmire that's been going on for what,
Thousands of years?
2018 years now, at
Longer
least.
than that.
Longer
Longer
than
like
that.
We ain't gonna fucking solve it. It's not.
No, we're not going to solve it. And it doesn't seem like the withdrawal from Syria, like I can go either way on it. Like I think we should back the Kurds, but I think that I don't want to constantly spend money on foreign wars all the time. Like, let's
Yeah.
have some peace for a while.
Well, I'm just saying we have fucked over the Kurds so many goddamn times.
I know.
Um, like at some point, can we just give Iraq to the Kurds or something?
We could try, but I don't think
Just
that would
just
work.
let them have it. Like, well, who the fuck is going to stand in our way? The Iraqi government?
Just set up like another state like Israel just for the Kurds.
Something like I don't know. Give them the fucking Gaza Strip and say fuck you, Israel. Look. Somebody has to
Israel should
inhabit
give
this.
back Gaza anyway, but that's just my thought process on that. Wasn't Gaza one of the things that they took in one of the wars they had?
Well, I mean, yes, but there's the whole issue with like the Palestinians. Like part of the reason they don't want to give up Gaza, like part of the situation there is they don't want them being allowed to set up their own state because they are scared that if they set up their own state, they're going to start trying to take back Israel because originally Israel there was a lot of Palestinian land that is now Israel, um, and they don't want to give up the land like the land they currently have, so they're like basically putting the Palestinians under permanent siege so that they
Yeah.
can't actually organize. Because they're like genuinely scared of the Palestinians rising up in any sort of real measure.
Palestinians rise up.
I mean, yeah, like there's a genuine security concern there.
No, for sure,
So-
I agree.
But like they also they're like trying to figure out right now basically how do they take Gaza in the most peaceful way possible, and basically just make it new Israel and put those guys somewhere else where they can't do as much damage. Because if Israel has all of the land, it's much harder for the Palestinians to lay claim.
Right.
Sounds good to me.
I
Israel
mean,
should just keep it.
I disavow.
I like this plan. This is a good plan.
I'm happy to be a part of it.
Oh, Jesus Christ, guys.
I don't know. I don't know enough about the whole situation in Israel and everything, but
It's like just
I
like everything in the
prefer-
Middle East, it's complicated.
personally, I'm more pro-Israel than anything else, but that's just that's just
I mean,
me.
I am too. I
That's-
want Israel to exist. I think
That's
that
me admitting that I don't know very much either. So
I think it's fair to say that Israel's not perfect
Right.
without saying that
yeah.
I think it's fair to say that they're not perfect, and also say that Israel should also be a state that exists.
Yeah,
Because the argument that they make where we're the only liberal democracy that exists in the Middle East, that's a plus. That's something to build on. But
True.
even Israel fucks up. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, they're the closest thing they have to it. They've got a fucking mandatory draft for the entire population.
well, and I get that.
Well,
Like, I understand the
of,
necessity, but yeah.
speaking of fucking up, Patreon,
Oh,
You're
oh,
smooth transition. That's what it's all about.
getting better at those transitions. I'm proud of you.
Thanks, man. I'll have it down in like a month.
You're not Nico level yet, but you're getting there.
So, you guys, I'm sure everybody's seen the Matt Christensen
oh yeah,
video
Yes.
and the dramatic reenactment.
that was funny as hell.
That was really funny.
Especially
So-
V.
Yeah, V did a great
Trying
job.
to sound like a woman the entire
Yeah.
time. I'm amazed he kept a straight face.
I like V. I just forget that he's there sometimes.
Yeah,
honest.
unfortunately, that's kind of true.
Like every time I watch his videos, I'm like, wow, that was like a good video. But then I forget to check back in, and I never click the bell or anything, so I don't get notified.
Yeah.
It's kind
I
of
wonder what he's up
underappreciated.
to. He really, like, he's a smart dude. He's a fucking doctor. But
Right.
he's that one kid in the room that everybody is like, man, you're really smart. Go away, though.
Kick
Aw,
V.
Kick V.
Like, it's kind of true. It's unfortunate. Like, don't get me wrong, I love V, but seriously, I'm sorry, V. Something that you guys may or may not have heard of is like, because I don't know who you guys follow. YouTuber Law is actually filing an actual complaint with the FTC over antitrust.
Yeah, I saw that.
Good.
That's the real big news.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like the reenactment thing, like I guess I don't know what that guy saw that or or Leor Lesser is his name. So I can stop calling him YouTuber long. Yeah, I guess he finally saw enough evidence that he finally said,
I
we
actually
need to
watched
actually.
I watched a video from Tim Pool where they had a conversation, and
Yeah.
what it was the
I
fact
watched the original video, sir.
that so what it was PayPal specifically hitting Subscribestar,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which everything else you could basically say, well, it's just multiple companies seeing the same idea and then like one of their competitors doing it, and then the market shifting towards that without collusion.
Well, I think it's very interesting looking at the Matt Christensen video in that context
Right.
because it's very the entire time it's pretty clear that she's like trying. She's basically using business speak where she can't say it's PayPal that's
Right.
forcing their hand, but she can hint real strong.
With
She can make it real obvious that she's trying to say PayPal made us do this.
yeah, and then I mean, I've heard of it sometimes before where like PayPal or Visa or MasterCard have censored, essentially said
Well,
you
yeah.
can't have this guy on here, kick him off.
Well, PayPal did the same thing to Gab.
But you
Remember?
never, yeah, but you don't hear about it very often. So I wonder, like, what stake do they have? Because the average person doesn't think like, oh, Sargon's being funded through Visa or MasterCard or whatever. Nobody connects those two, even if
Well, I think
somebody
we're gonna have to see it in Discovery.
uses a Visa to pay the Patreon account or whatever. Nobody puts those two
It,
together. So like I'm wondering like how deep is this in these like payment companies like
I
Visa or
mean,
MasterCard or
it could be
PayPal?
a lot of different things because it could be so. It might even be the fact that it's not actually coming from PayPal. It could be that someone PayPal is affiliated with that's putting pressure on PayPal to put pressure on others. But that's all going to have to
Right.
come out in Discovery. It could be something as simple as someone high up in PayPal is very ideologically motivated and knows all about the anti SJWs, the skeptics, or whatever you want to call them, and
Probably
decided to hit Sargon. And they know
probably
full well that PayPal is above reproach in most situations.
it's probably the Federal Reserve putting pressure on Visa who's putting pressure on PayPal.
Oh boy.
Well, I mean,
Let's
if the
go
fucking
tinfoil
problem
hat on this one.
if the problem goes back to the Federal Reserve, I don't even know what to do anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Abolish the Federal Reserve.
Oh my God,
Ugh.
Deus
No,
Volt,
I'm not. I'm
taxation
just
is
joking.
theft.
I'm just joking.
No. So basically, what Lear Lesser brought up was that pretty much all of this, except for the whole bit with Subscribestar and Patreon, can basically, there's a good argument to be made that it was just like when Facebook banned Alex Jones, then you have
Right.
Spotify that banned him, and then and YouTube and all of these companies, that all of these companies were saying, okay, so
It's just follow the leader.
Facebook pulled the trigger, now we're good. So they just pulled the trigger on everybody. It was
Right.
the fact that what benefit does PayPal have to killing the payment ability of Subscribestar?
It looks preemptive as opposed to
Right.
reactive.
Right, exactly. There's no direct competition from Subscribestar to Patreon. Not Patreon, but PayPal. So
Right.
why was there this reaction to Subscribestar when Sargon shifted? Because in a free market system, you're able to do this. The reason why you're able to say, get out of my business, go away, I don't want to talk to you, is because you can go talk to the cake shop down the street and get your cake
Right.
there.
Once you're the
But
big boy, the rules change.
right, exactly. You have some limits that are put on you when you dominate a market, that you have, like, you can't just, like, an example he brought up was like what happened in the railroads, right? You had a Union Pacific Railroad, or I forget which one it was, but like we'll use Union Pacific in this
Sounds
example.
right, yeah.
Because they dominated so much of the transportation market when they developed that, they were required to allow smaller railroad companies to use their rail lines.
Mhm.
And also, this is also demonstrated in when, like, right before AT&T got broke up in the 80s, they were mandated by the federal government to allow other companies to use their phone lines that they had laid to be able to connect in and provide service through their system.
I hope they
So,
got reimbursed, because otherwise that's actually kind of bullshit.
what's up?
I said I hope they got reimbursed for
Oh
that,
yeah, for sure.
because that otherwise that'd be kind of bullshit.
Yeah, AT&T gets a charge of AT&T charged a fee for those companies being on their service. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Well, there you
that's
go.
what I thought, is that they gotta charge a fee or something for it.
yeah,
But I'm just saying, if you lay the groundwork, you should reap the benefits for that.
oh yeah, absolutely. And basically, what in this particular situation, it's complete. Like, there's no other company that just preemptively got a tax SubscribeStar or anything else.
Right.
They cut SubscribeStar off at the nuts. Like before, it was, oh my god, we found this alternative that worked very similarly to Patreon. It's pretty good. No one used it, and then Sargon shifted, and
Suddenly it gets nuked from orbit. Yeah.
suddenly, yeah, it gets nuked from orbit, and you're like, that's not
Yeah,
how this is supposed to work.
Wasn't
Right.
SubscribeStar was so small that they couldn't be considered a competitor necessarily with Patreon, because they
Well, that almost makes it worse, because it's a situation where you've got like a huge company that is capable of just killing your business for no reason.
Right.
At least from their perspective, because
ideological reasons.
fucking, well, I mean, from SubscribeStar's perspective, they're just sitting there like, what the fuck did we do?
Right. Yeah. We picked up a very prominent what this would be like is like you have a magazine, right? And you have and you have like some no-name writers, right? And then someone like Hunter S. Thompson,
George
like, I want to write
R. Martin.
Yes, yeah. It was like, I want to write an article for you. And you're like, oh shit. And then like the New Yorker comes in and says, we're just going to cut off your your ability to print this stuff by like reducing, like buying the paper company you buy from, like that type of shit. And like, what that does is it kills it before your competition has a chance to even put its foot in the door, because you're doing something which you're free to do, and you're operating in using your free speech as a company to promote your whatever message you want, and it's up for the people that are associated with you to say, no, I don't want to deal with that, and they push you aside and go to a competitor. That's how
I mean, on the bright side, PayPal behavior, like the reason that PayPal has such a huge market share right now is because they were basically apolitical for a long time.
Right.
Like, that's part of the reason. The fact that if they're trying to wade into the culture war, well, they're about to eat a whole bunch of humble pie when they end up dealing with a bunch of competitors that start springing up and going, okay, we can't rely on PayPal.
Right.
So we're not going to use any of our funds through PayPal. We're going to set up our own system that if you want to come and you want to know that your funds are being taken care of by a company that doesn't give a shit what you say, come to us.
As long as you're not money laundering,
basically
using our system to trade drugs, which are currently illegal in your country, or those are the two major ones I can think off the top of my head. As long as you're
even then, it depends on how it's set up. It depends on how it's set up, because like if they set it up like through cryptocurrencies and just did basically a market exchange through crypto.
That's possible, man, but like there's actually something that's far easier and a lot simpler to use. It's the automated clearinghouse system that is the check payment processing system that you know how you take your written check and you hand it to Walmart, they run it through their little thing, right?
Sure.
When they use that, what they're doing is they're submitting a request to your bank account using your check to pull the funds out. And that is managed by a nonprofit system, like completely, that the banks pay into. So
sure, but what I'm saying is, like, I think that something like that eventually will have to come up if it's actually going to defend, ideology effectively, where people can just put through a system that is completely untaintable. Right. There is no human involvement. There is no nonprofit. There is no being able to say, I'm not processing your payment because of X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, who the fuck are you? I don't know. This is all done through crypto.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm just saying at some point, I think something like that will need to be set up. And it sounds like, if I remember correctly, Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin were looking into that. which would be awesome. If they can figure out some sort of payment processing system through crypto that's simple and easy to use,
Right.
A plus. A plus. That sounds great. Because right now, to use crypto, you have to get like a MetaMask. You've got to set up all these different things. You've got to figure out how to sell it. You've got to figure out how to buy it. You've got to figure out like all these. It's so much easier just to hand someone $5.
Right.
Well, yeah, it's going to be a few years for competitors to come online, though.
What I'm
But I
saying
mean,
is, in the long term, this is probably
right,
a good thing. If PayPal isn't going to be ideologically neutral, someone will come along that will be.
Yep.
right.
It's like I don't think because I know some people are trying to pull the trigger on we need to put legislation in place. I think a lawsuit to slap them in the short term is good, and in the long term, get like set up competitors to make sure that they have a reason to stay ideologically neutral, so that they don't have the excuse.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a lot of people are going to suffer in the short term, but sometimes you got to suffer in the short term for long-term gain.
Yeah, sacrifice the present for the future is usually a pretty good way of handling your affairs.
That's the whole Jordan Peterson philosophy.
I mean, he's not wrong.
No, yeah,
Like
I
I can't think of a single time where it's worked out better for me to say, you know what, fuck the future. Right now is awesome.
well, it was awesome at the time.
True.
That candy
True.
bar was delicious. The diabetes sucks. All right. Well, do you guys have any other stories? I think we covered most everything I had written down.
No, I got nothing, man.
All
Because
right. Well,
originally I was bringing up it was the Patreon thing, and I brought up one other thing that right? Or was it?
use the Syria withdrawal, which we already
Oh,
did.
right. Okay, yeah, we already covered that.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for the weekly wrap with the USA Liberalists. Please remember to like, subscribe, and click the
Subscribe to
bell.
PewDiePie.
Subscribe to PewDiePie. Fuck T-Series. Um, and we will see you guys next week.